Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome back to episode 6 of my channel, or welcome back to my channel. This is episode 6 of the series that I'm making on product rule. And in this episode, I'm going to try to be a little bit detailed as well as a little bit faster than usual. If you haven't watched the introduction or the first, basically the first 5 videos before this episode, you should go watch it. But if you're somebody who feels some level of comfortability and all you just want is a good refresher, then you can also continue to watch this video, inshallah. And if you're someone who's been watching all the videos, thank you for coming back. Try your possible best to attempt as I'm attempting the questions, and inshallah, by the grace of God, it's going to be helpful to you, that you basically can answer questions when you're in an assignment, or when you're doing an assignment, or when you're in an exam. So that's the goal, for you guys to be independent. So please follow me as I solve this problem. So the problem that we have for today is y of z equals 1 minus e to the z multiplied by z plus e to the z. So basically, like I had explained earlier, anytime you're given a question and you have two subfunctions such as this one, in this case the two subfunctions are this, and these two subfunctions are multiplied together to get a main function, which is y of z. So y of z is the main function or the full function, while 1 minus e to the z is the first subfunction, right? And z plus e to the z is the second subfunction. Whenever you want to apply the product rule, like I'd explained, product just means multiplication, is the rule that you apply whenever two subfunctions are multiplied together. And you're supposed to derive the main function, but the main function comprises of two subfunctions that are multiplied together, so you have to apply something called the product rule. And you can see product involves multiplication, hence why the name is product rule. So this is basically the first thing that you're supposed to know. Identify what the question is. The question looks like a product rule, so you're going to apply, the question looks like a function that you will need to apply the product rule, so therefore you're going to apply the product rule. Before we go on to apply the product rule, let's write the general statement of a function, and of a function that comprises of two subfunctions multiplied together. So we have y of x equals f of x multiplied by g of x. So basically this is it. And again, in calculus, I had explained earlier, your professors are not always going to use the x sign or the cross sign for multiplication. Instead, you're going to use a dot. The dot in calculus is for you to signify that something is a multiplication, rather than using the x sign or the cross sign, so that you're not confused when the variable is different. But in this particular case, what do we see our variable as? We see that the variable in question is z. So therefore, we can just simply change our question's general formula or general statement to have the variable z, so that it becomes easier for you to solve the problem, inshallah. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to change it back to z. So y of z equals f of z multiplied by g of z. So this is just a simple statement. This is just a statement. Now, the statement is just basically like a function given, comprising of two subfunctions. Now, let us put what it's going to look like when we have to apply the product rule. So now, the next thing is applying the product rule. And the first thing you do is, when you apply the product rule, what happens? You're going to do this. Y of z equals f of z multiplied by g of z. So I'm writing the statement again. prime. And what does prime stand for? Prime is the same thing as saying the derivative of the entire function with respect to the variable, and in this case the variable is z. So it's the same thing as saying y of the derivative of the entire function with respect to z, which is the main variable in this question, multiplied by g of z. I just wanted to rewrite this. I explained this in previous episodes, but there's nothing wrong with repetition. So this is it. This is basically the same thing. I just put an equals to for you to know that your professor could either use prime or you can use d to z. I prefer to use prime because it makes our work simpler and neater. But anyone you choose to use is fine. Just know how to properly use it. So that's it. Now that we have that, this is what it's supposed to look like. You're gonna end up with y prime of z. So this is the differentiated information. This one is undifferentiated. Differentiated function. Okay, this is undifferentiated function, or undifferentiated general function. Sorry, let's use the word general, so because it can apply to all sorts of questions. Since we know calculus, different questions in calculus is just a mixture, same concept but just a mixture of different quantities and problems to get different problems. So y prime of z, this is after differentiation or after applying the product rule. You end up with the derivative of the first subfunction. So we have f prime of z multiplied by the derivative of the first subfunction multiplied by the second underived subfunction. So let me do this all over again because I'm confusing you guys. I'm going to mention it one more time. Just scratch the previous thing I said. So when we're deriving it, we have y prime of z, which indicates that we're going to first of all do the derivative of the first subfunction. So that's going to be f prime of z multiplied by the second subfunction that is not derived. So we have g of z. So here is the first subfunction and here is the second subfunction. And I'll advise you to always label it in your work. So you have the derivative of the first subfunction multiplied by the underived second subfunction plus, so we put all of this in like a bracket, plus the derivative of the second subfunction, so g prime of z multiplied by the derivative, multiplied by just the first subfunction, f of z. So what I'm trying to let you know is this. We first of all started with the derivative of the first subfunction, f of z, and we multiplied that by the second subfunction, but the second subfunction is left by itself. It's just brought down. It is not derived. We'll put that all in a bracket. Then we go to the next part where we do the derivative of the second subfunction, and then we multiply that value by the first subfunction, but it is not going to be, the subfunction will not be derived in this second part, in the other part, on the other side of the plus sign. So that's basically how you do it. So that means in each part, in each of the information in the bracket, or in each of the quantity in the bracket that are multiplied by, you're supposed to expect one derived and one underived. And then on the other side of the plus sign, you're supposed to expect one derived subfunction and one underived subfunction. Please never forget that. It's very important. Hopefully this is helping you guys. And when I lay out the problem and explain it, I hope you guys would learn more. And as well, I would also like do the breakdown of the actual question we're given here, where I have the red arrow. You'll be able to see it better. So I'm going to rewrite the last thing I wrote here and start differentiating our actual question. So we have here y prime of z. So the derivative of that equals f prime of z multiplied by g of z. So basically one derived, one underived multiplied together, plus g prime of z multiplied by f of z. So basically one derived and one underived. Now let's go back to our actual question. Our actual question, y of z is this. Is going to be, this is our actual question given y of z equals 1 minus e to the z multiplied by z plus e to the z. So that is it. So now that we already know what this is and we've talked about what the statement, the undifferentiated general function looks like, we can apply it to here. So we're going to pick our first subfunction like we did here, and this is going to be the first subfunction. If you please watch my previous video, I explained something in more detail about these subfunctions, and then that's my episode 5 video. And then the second subfunction, just finish watching this one and then you can watch that one, or you can watch all my other previous videos. There are a lot of like knowledge packed information there. So now that you have this, now we're going to start applying it, right? So we just basically substitute, right? So we have y prime of z equals, derivative of the first function is basically we're saying 1 minus e to the z prime multiplied by the second subfunction, which is just z plus e to the z, right? Bracket plus this part here, g prime of z, which is just the second subfunction. So that's going to be z plus e to the z prime multiplied by the first subfunction, 1 minus e to the z. So we applied it. Now, because of people who may be confused, I'm going to use yellow to show you something. What I'm saying here is this is f of z is equals 1 minus e to the z. So have that in case you're confused. And g of z is equals to z plus e to the z. That's what I'm doing here in case you're confused. Hopefully this helps you this is going to help you have the information cleared up. So this equals, so now we're going to derive this. And what do we do first? We have 1 minus e to the z, right? When we derive 1 or a constant, we know we're going to get a 0. So I'm going to use a small squiggly line to let you know when we're done. So 1, this is done. This has been differentiated. And then we have, what is the differentiation of negative e to the z? We first of all drop down the negative. Differentiation for negative e to the z is basically e to the z. Basically differentiation of anything that is an exponent to a variable by itself is just basically that thing. So it's like, it's just basically this. Let me explain how we got this. The area of negative e to the z is the same thing as negative e to the z because we're going to first of all drop this information down, and then we're going to derive what is at the top, or what is the power of e. What is the power of the exponent? The power of the exponent, what is the derivative of the power of the exponent? The power of the exponent here is z, and if we do z prime, this is just basically saying what is the derivative of z, and we know the derivative of z to be 1. So it's just like saying 1 multiplied by e to the z. What is that going to give you? You're going to get e to the z. So that's why anytime your professor says, oh, what is the derivative of e to the x? We're just going to put e to the x, because x, that is the power of e, the exponent. When we derive x, we always get 1. But if we had a question where we had e to the x, now we're going to do we're going to just drop down the exponent, the entire function we're given. So we'll have e to the 2x, right? Multiplied by the derivative of the power of e, which is 2x multiplied by the derivative of 2x, and that's going to be 2. So your answer is going to be 2e to the x. But in this case, our variable is e, and it is just, the variable we have is z, and the power of the exponent is simply z, and the derivative of that power z is basically 1. So it's the same thing as saying e to the z times 1. So we can just ignore all of that math and just put e to the z. Hopefully that helps you clear up some confusion you may have. So let me erase this and rewrite. As you can see, even when I say I'm going to be fast, I can't help myself but explaining it in detail. So that will be 1 minus e to the z. Hopefully it's helping students, especially students who struggle a lot with math. I know I used to struggle a lot with it as well. So this is this right here, and we just drop down z plus e to the z. We just drop it down. Anytime you're not differentiating something, you just drop it down. And yeah, that's it. So we're done with the left side of the plus sign. Now we're going to do the right side of the plus sign. What is the derivative of z? The derivative of z, we know that to be 1. What is the derivative of e to the z? We know that is just simply e to the z. So plus e to the z, because the derivative of the power, which is z, is just 1. So put the bracket multiplied by 1 minus e to the z. Like I explained to you, we just drop that one down. We're not doing anything with it. We're just going to drop it down. So I'm going to rewrite all of that here. Y prime of x equals negative e to the z multiplied by z plus e to the z, close bracket, bigger bracket, plus basically this one here. I'm going to write the same thing. 1 plus e to the z, 1 minus e to the z. So this is it. This is basically your answer. But obviously, since we're mathematicians, we're gonna wanna break the information down. So I'm just gonna repeat what I just had here, that with my beautiful red pen, squiggly bracket pen situation here. I'm just gonna rewrite and put that in the next page. So our answer would be, it's going to be y prime of z, same thing as saying negative e to the z. You may be wondering where I'm getting these values from. So I'm getting it from the last line from our previous page. Multiplied by z plus e to the z, z plus e to the z, close bracket, bigger bracket, plus 1, go to the previous page, 1 plus e to the z, all in bracket, e to the z, all in brackets, close bracket, open bracket, 1 minus e to the z. So how are we going to do that? We're just going to basically do the simple math that we've always done since we're in middle school, and we just multiply. We open the bracket by multiplying everything. So first thing I'm going to do is negative e to the z right here. I'll multiply it by z, and negative e to the z right here, I'm going to multiply it by e to the z. And that's 1. And then this one right here, 1 plus e to the z, we're going to apply something we know, or something known as FOIL, which is firsts, outers, inners, and then lasts. So for those of you who don't know that, it's called FOIL. The firsts, outers, inners, and last. In order for you to expand anything that looks like this, so if you're given a plus b, all in bracket, multiplied by c plus d, or x plus y and a, b, c, and they're just basically simple, they're just basically terms that represent actual quantities. They don't always have to look like this. So x plus y together in bracket, plus multiplied by W plus V, right? So that's what basically the quantity should look like this in order for you to do the multiplication and work with them. So FOIL is a good system that would help you, or good method that will help you do the step-by-step process that is required so that you actually get what you're doing and you get it done right. Inshallah. So that's it. Here then we have, since we're using FOIL, we're gonna start with our firsts. The first is basically the first information, or the first quantity of in between the first quantity of each bracket. So in this case, the first quantity of each bracket is what? 1 for the first bracket and 1 for the second bracket. So we just do 1 times 1, right? So we have plus here 1 times 1. Okay, this is one bracket like that. And then the outers, so basically whatever is the outmost information. So in this case, the outmost information for both bracket. For the first bracket, what is the outmost information? We have it to be 1 because it's the one that is closest to the outer, so like this information is like 1, 2, 3, 4. What is a quantity that is like closer to the outer surroundings, right? 1 in this case is for this bracket, and 4 is for this bracket because e to the z is closer to the environment, the outside environment. So outers in this case, so this is first here, then we do that plus the multiplication of the outers, the same thing as saying 1 times negative e to the z. So that's FOIL. So we're doing outers plus inners. So now what is the innermost information in each one of the brackets? What is the innermost information? We know that to be the ones that are mostly in and are farther away from the outside environment. Like the outers are closer to the outside environment, the inners are farther away from like the outside environment. So that's e to the z multiplied by 1. So that's going to be plus e to the z multiplied by 1, right? And that is inners. And then we're going to put the last one here. Let's just put it at the top, plus last, right? What does last stand for? Last is basically the last terms in each one of the bracket. The last terms in each one of the bracket, yes, you guessed, definitely did guess right. That's going to be e to the z multiplied by e to the z. So the last term in the first bracket is this one, and the last term in the second bracket is this one. So it will be e to the z multiplied by e to the z. So that's how you apply FOIL. And this is for L here, right? So let me erase this, and I'm going to write it properly now at the bottom of the page in our gorgeous blue marker. So I have this. So y prime of z equals negative e to the z times z is just basically us saying negative e to the z or negative z e to the z, whichever one you want. And then you have negative here times positive. We know that that's negative. And then negative e to the z plus e to the z here. That's the same thing as saying e to the z plus e to the z. Let me just use. Please look at the gorgeous yellow information at the bottom of the page or at the side of the page to help you. Anytime you're given like you're told to multiply two quantities or two terms or two information, or let's just say two information, two quantities that have the same base. So 2 raised to 2 to the x, right, multiplied by 2 to the x. 2 to the x multiplied by 2 to the a. whenever you're asked to multiply two things of the same base, in this case the base is 2 here and the base here is 2, you just have to say that's going to be equals to 2. Just pick out the base, right? And then you just multiply, you just add up the powers. So that would be 2x plus a. That's just something you should know. Let me do another quick one. Let me do another quick one here. I know this video is getting longer, but it's supposed to help you guys, especially those who struggle with math. So in this case, say we do x raised to power 6 multiplied by x raised to power 8. What are you going to do? Well, both of them have the same base, right? The same base is x. So what you're just going to end up with is going to be x, and then you just add up the two powers. So that will be 6 plus 8. 6 plus 8, the answer ends up becoming x raised to power 14. So that's it. So that's the same thing. Oh, sorry. Trying to get an eraser. So that's the same method you're going to apply here. In this case, what is our question? We're asked to do e to the z multiplied by e to the z. Well, both of them have the same base, so we're just going to put e. When you add up the powers of both of them. So z plus z is what? Simply e to the 2z. So here will be e to the 2z. So now that we know that that's what's going on, let's just have it here. So negative e to the z multiplied by positive e to the z, we bring out negative first, because negative basically makes the positive negative, and then we have e to the 2z. Yay! So that's our answer. It's a little bit too shaded, so yeah. So yes, plus now let's do the FOIL information. 1 times 1 is 1, so 1 plus 1 times negative e to the z is same thing as negative e to the z. This negative here, this negative times the positive here would be negative, so negative e to the z plus e to the z times 1 is basically e to the z, the inners, then the last will be plus e to the z multiplied by e to the z is same thing as e to the 2z. Yay! So the answer here will be y prime of z equals, okay, now we're going to do everything. Now before we go ahead, you know that negative e to the z plus e to the z, these two together will be combined to get 0, so we don't have to add it to our new information. But then let's open the bracket, right? We've done all the multiplication. Now it's safe to open the bracket. So we have negative e to the z, right, minus e to the 2z plus 1 plus e to the 2z. So guess what again? Guess what? Well, since we have I think I made a mistake. Hold on, you guys. I think I made a mistake. I'm sure some of you have observed that mistake. This here is actually, go to the top, please, where you see the go to the top of where we did last. You know, when I did FOIL, that's why you always have to check your work. Here, when I did FOIL, right, I said e to the z multiplied by e to the z instead of e to the z multiplied by e to the negative e to the z. So where I put last, I'm going to erase it and do it again. I apologize for the confusion. Not my intention, just excitement. So you have e to the z, right, multiplied by negative e to the z. So that's what I'm trying to show you here. And so that means here we're gonna have a gorgeous negative sign. So that will be negative here. So right, and that means I'm gonna change this to be negative as well. That's why it's good for you to check your work while you're solving, because mistakes happen. Seriously, they literally just happen. So y prime of z, you end up with negative e to the zz, and then these two can be added together. So negative here, we can have this to be negative 2 e to the 2z plus 1. So our answer here becomes, final answer becomes y prime of z equals negative 2e to the 2z negative z e to the z plus 1. So this is the answer. This is literally your answer. Nothing super wow. This is it. This is basically your answer. I hope this video was really helpful to you guys. If you're confused, just basically rewind and see. These questions are not supposed to be super easy for you, but I think that with time you can understand what's going on. But let me do a quick summary. So I said y of z. So first of all, I wrote the question down. We know we're going to apply product rule. So we did that first. And we knew we're going to apply product rule. We changed the variable for it to fit what it's supposed to look like. Then we wrote out the product rule statement or whatever. We did that, what it's supposed to look like. So the differentiated or differentiation general formula or general function, right? Let me put formula because it really is a formula because you're inputting stuff in it. So this is here, the differential general formula. Yeah, and then you give and then you compare your question to the general formula, and the next thing you do is when you compare it, you identify the two subfunctions, and then you substitute those two subfunctions in your question into the general differentiation formula. When you do all of that, you apply the differentiation on each one of the places where you're expected to differentiate. When you can do that, you multiply them up and then you add them all up. So you multiply them up, and which is what we've done here, and then you add them all up and then you get your answer. And we add our answer to be y prime equals negative 2e to the 2z minus z e to the z plus 1, and then your work is done. So I hope this video was really helpful for you guys. I work really hard on my videos. If you have any questions, please write in the comment section, or you can email me the question, and I'm going to try my possible best to get back to you and solve it. So please make sure you click the like button, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share your videos with your peers and anybody you know that this video is going to be helpful to. And I'll also ask if you guys are really good with video editing. I'm looking for a video editor. If you know anyone that is good with it, you could also ask them to email me to see if we can work something out, so that there will be somebody, I can make more videos, or there will be somebody editing the videos, and it's going to also be a paid position. So make sure you take care of yourself, and I wish you guys all the best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.